Are you a business owner or entrepreneur who's had great success in the business world, and now you want to launch a speaking career to share your message with the world? If that's you, then listen up. 25-year speaking industry veteran Brett Ridgway has released his latest special report, 3 key things entrepreneurs must master to build a profitable speaking business. To pick up your copy, go to brettridgway.com/freebie. Welcome to the Spotlight on Speaking show with Brett Ridgway, where you'll learn the keys to building a profitable speaking business from speaking industry pros. Each week, we interview a great guest who will share his or her speaking journey, identify what their keys to success have been, and highlight some critical mistakes they've made along the way that you'll want to avoid. Be sure to visit our website at spotlightonspeaking.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, sit back, tune in, and get ready to meet this week's guest.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Spotlight on Speaking show with Brett Ridgway. I'm your host, and I'm excited to have as my guest today, Julie Austin. Julie's the founder of Speaker Sponsor and the author of the new book, From the King's Court to Kickstarter, Patronage in the Modern Era. Julie's all about helping speakers and artists make a good living doing what they do best, create. Thrive Global calls it an idea that could change the world. Welcome, Julie Austin, to the Spotlight on Speaking show.
Hello, Brett.
So, Julie, this is you've got a unique background, and so I want to dive in right into. Let's go back to the first time you decided that you wanted to be a speaker. So, first of all, how many years are we going back, and what was the subject of that very first speech that you did, if you can remember?
I can remember. So it was about 15 years ago, and the economy, my economy, went from, I was a manufacturer making a product, I'm an inventor, and things were booming. I was traveling back and forth to my factory, flying around the world, making lots of money, and all of a sudden, nothing. My product was counterfeited. Then we got the collapse of 2008, and so it all hit me at once, and I realized I had to do something different. And I have a background as an actor, so it just seems like a logical choice to become a speaker, and I have a lot of information to pass on. So that's how I got started.
So, in my mind, there are 3 primary types of speakers, Julie. One is what you would call the typical keynote speaker, goes in and delivers to a corporation or an association a talk. The second is what I call the platform seller. So they deliver content and then make a pitch for whatever their product or service is at the end. And the third is what I would just call a business builder speaker. It could be a local attorney, chiropractor who just speaks to local groups to make people aware of what they do, and then hopefully they'll have a need for their type of product or service. So which of those 3 genres, keynoter, platform seller, business builder, have you played in?
Only the keynotes. So about 90% of everything I do is keynotes. When during COVID, I kind of switched a little and then realized also that you could make money as a breakout speaker. But what I realized in the breakout speaking is that they need a lot of speakers, and most of them don't get paid. That's not always true. I've been paid, and I've also had my breakout sponsored, because if they don't pay me, I got to get paid somehow. So that's really what happened. And one of the first ones I did was for I guess you call them tween girls. I don't know. What's the age of like 12, 13? I don't have kids. So, and it was mostly that age group. And I was sponsored by a game company. And So I put their game in the back of the room and pitch them. And, it's not pitching from the stage when you get sponsored. It is the opposite of that. You might say, thank you to my sponsor, XYZ game company, whatever, but then that's where it ends. And then the rest of it is just great information. You get paid. The audience gets a really good speech and good information. The meeting planner gets a free speaker, and the sponsor gets their product in front of their target audience.
Now we're starting. I want to dive deeper into this whole area of sponsorship a little bit later in our talk, but I want to go back to the keynote speaking a little bit and dive into that a little bit more, Julie. So when you're doing a keynote speech, number one, how much customization do you do for a given speech? Because I know some speakers who deliver the same damn speech every time. That's their calling card, and they never modify it whatsoever. But when you're doing a keynote speak, how much is customized and how much is quote off the shelf stuff?
Wow. I would say I can't help myself. I customize a lot of it. In fact, I just not, it's not like I really start from scratch because I've had years and years of building up, three specific speeches, but I do a ton of research into their industry. I make sure I talk to people in the industry, meeting planners. I mean, I do a lot of research, and I like that part. I don't think all speakers do, but I happen to like diving in and learning a lot about a specific industry I don't know anything about.
So when you deliver a keynote speech, since you're, typically a platform seller, you judge the success by the number of dollars you generate in the back of the room. As a keynote speaker, how do you determine whether you've been successful or not?
Very good question. And I have not heard that question before. I think um, if you affect the people in the audience to get them to change their behavior in some way, and how do you know you're doing that? I tend to now, I didn't used to do it, but I try to follow up and, find out if they've implemented any of the things that I've talked about. I did one for a big pharmaceutical company, and immediately after the speech, they had a big party and they were using my information and breaking off into groups. That's happened several times. I did it with a newspaper industry speech, and they broke off into groups. So I could see it right there that they were already using what I'm teaching them. And that's, as a speaker, there's no better feeling. Don't you agree?
I agree wholeheartedly. So when you're doing a keynote for a corporation, who's your go-to person within the organization to try to find out those little details that can make your speech more impactful?
Most of the corporations that I have been hired to speak for have found me. And they found me I looked at every single one of them and I went, they all wanted a woman inventor. So that narrows it down tremendously in my case. Um, I found it really difficult to go after those jobs because you can never figure out who the right person is, which department. It's so complicated, but honestly, I have my own database that I've been using for 15 years, but mostly the corporations have found me.
Okay, so how did they find you?
Well, um, I think, you know what? Before I had a video, I mean, everybody says you need a slick website and, a slick video and all kinds of stuff. I didn't have a video. My website was awful. And yet, I still got the job. So, I think it's getting a lot harder now because simply because there is so much competition out there, I think.
So we're going to talk about sponsorship again a little bit more later. But what other ways can a speaker be paid if they're not getting paid directly in dollars?
Well, I mean, yes, there is the sponsorship. I, selling books for one thing. I didn't used to do that either, and I started just branching out. I tried a lot of different experimental things during COVID. Um, and I think selling books is a great way. I know speakers that make a lot of money, who do very, very little keynote work, but they sell workshops, they sell their own courses, that kind of thing. I met one the other day. I mean, he makes a lot of money, and he rarely does any keynotes anymore.
Well, there's certainly different models, and one can be pretty much successful in any of them if they know how to, play that particular game. So, when you are thinking back on your speaking career, Julie, if you had to name three things that you feel are the biggest keys to your success as a keynote speaker, what would those three things be?
I think in my case, it's the fact that I have an acting background. That helped tremendously. I have an improv background. That also helps. I do a lot of interactive, because I speak on creativity and innovation from an inventor's point of view. So I do a lot of improv with the audience and play a lot of creativity games, that kind of thing. So I think that those two backgrounds helped a lot. And I think my third thing is my curiosity about learning. So that's, like I mentioned before, I love the part of customizing. I'm doing one coming up for city managers. I had no clue what they even did and knew nothing at all about government. But I interviewed a lot of them and I learned. And for me, I like that part of it. So it makes the speech more rich, I think, and more relatable to the audience.
So I want to go down a slightly different path, and that is, do you feel that all speakers should offer a Q&A as part of their session? Because there are some say that you should never give up control of the microphone. You never know what's going to happen. Others say, you got to do Q&A to make it more personal for the audience. Where do you stand on that whole issue?
I think that if you know your subject well enough, you should absolutely be able to do a Q&A. You should know it backwards and forwards and be able to stand up there with a mic and take any kind of question you might get. And what you said about you never know what can happen. I was doing this in Vegas and I do something, it's an interactive game with the audience, and I have a volunteer come on stage, and I forgot to mention that it should be G-rated. And she innocently, she was from another country, so she didn't quite understand how the language barrier was. Let's just say that it was hilariously funny, but I had to say, okay, let's get another volunteer. And from now on, I say this has to be G-rated.
Lesson learned, right? Lesson learned.
Because you never know when you do improv what can happen. And I've had people who are way more experienced speakers than me say, I would never do improv. You just don't know how it's going to go.
All right, so I have some other questions I want to ask you, Julie, but before we do, let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor.
Are you a business owner or entrepreneur who's had great success in the business world, and now you want to launch a speaking career to share your message with the world? If that's you, then listen up. 25-year speaking industry veteran Brett Ridgway has released his latest special report, 3 key things entrepreneurs must master to build a profitable speaking business. To pick up your copy, go to brettridgway.com/freebie.
And we are back with my special guest, Julie Austin. So, one of my favorite questions to ask my guest, Julie, is okay, it's time to bare your soul a little bit here. Share some embarrassing moment from your speaking career that left you a bit red faced at the time, but a valuable lesson was learned, and it would be something that you would highly advise up and coming speakers not to do.
Oh boy. Okay, that's easy. This was in the very beginning of my speaking, and it was for a Korean franchise business. And first of all, I didn't know. I was like there at 8 o'clock in the morning. They had partied all night. Everybody had a hangover. They were sitting there with their arms crossed. And I'm going to bring them on stage to do some improv. Wee! And I don't know, something just, it kind of caught me off guard a little bit. And I realized I forgot the name of the client. and um and he's standing at the back of the room with his arms folded, and I just went, oh my, in my head I'm going, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I happened to look over, and I saw they had a little teddy bear that had their logo on it. And I was able to save it. But yeah, do not forget the client's name.
Okay. All right. So, thank God for teddy bears, I guess, huh? So, I want to dive into your sweet spot a little bit, Julie, and let's talk about the whole area of sponsorship because it's one thing that very few speakers are aware of, have ever done, have no clue about how to go about it. So, let's just get into it. What are the keys to getting sponsorship for a speaking engagement?
Well, I would say the number one thing is to, all about sponsorship is all about your target audience. So if you are, let's say, speaking to a group of new moms, you're you're not going to go after sponsors like cigarette companies or alcohol companies. It doesn't make any sense. You will go after those sponsors who want to get in front of your target audience. So if you put a commercial on TV, you spend a lot of money and you might reach, 2-year olds or somebody 102, and everyone in between. You might, be reaching men or kids. I mean, and so it's not targeted to new moms. But if I'm speaking in front of 100 new moms, that is a target audience. So that's what you always have to be thinking of.
So, what kind of dollars are even available for speakers for sponsorship? I mean, are they going to get thousands of dollars, a few $100s? I mean, what are they expecting if they go out in search of this?
It really depends. I mean, if it depends on the same, if you are going to be, it's ears and eyeballs, right? So in marketing. So if you have 20 people in a breakout session, nah, you probably aren't going to make that much. You can still make a few hundred. And what you want to do, if that's the case, is get 2 or 3 sponsors. I've had some of my speakers I think he had something like 5 sponsors, and each of them paid, I don't know how much. It might have been, if even if it was $200 each, there you go. There's $1,000 that he's going to get for that hour that he would not have been paid for normally.
So, aside from how critical it is to make sure that your target audience matches up with the target audience they want to reach, what are the other important considerations that you need to look at?
As far as who to go after,
Yeah, correct.
I started out when I was about 21, and I was in New York City, and I was working on a TV show. And my boss came in one day and he said, go out and get sponsors. see ya. And he walked out the door. And I went, what? I had no idea how to get them, what they were. I didn't really know. I always thought sponsorship was big corporations, and, that's all I had been used to. So it was up to me, and I decided to just go literally door to door. So I'm going to get small businesses. And that's where I started specializing in, because, and I put together enough small businesses for us to do a TV pilot. And sometimes I would get in-kind sponsorship. That means the clothes or the set or, things like that, which I don't have to pay for. And sometimes I'd get money. But I had enough sponsors that we put it all together and we were able to put on a really good TV pilot. So I target small businesses.
Okay. So what are the critical mistakes you've seen speakers make when trying to obtain sponsorship?
I would say not having an audience ready. So that means they have no following on social media. They don't have any kind of a background. So, as a sponsor, they're going to be looking for that. They're going to, and that's really part of a trend that's happening with TV also, is that they want people with a big audience, you know? And you can do that before you start looking for sponsors, build up your audience.
So Julie, you have this website called speakersponsor.com. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what that's all about and how can they get involved in your world if they so choose?
So speaker sponsor, what happened was when I did the one with the game company, I had other speakers come up to me and go, "How did we heard you got paid and we're not getting paid?" And I said, "Well, look in my room. I have a sponsor." And then they said, "Well, how do you do that?" And I realized I'm going to have to put together a course to teach them because there's so much to learn. And I actually put speaker sponsor together first, the directory, and then realized that the speakers didn't know how to get the sponsors or keep the sponsors. So I should have done everything together. I just kind of, it's a speaker sponsor is a directory, but also I teach people how to get and keep sponsors.
So, as we wind down this episode, Julie, what would your final words of wisdom be to aspiring speakers about number one, being as successful as possible as a keynote speaker, number two, pursuing the whole sponsorship model?
I would say, as far as being successful, it's a competitive, very, very competitive business, very much like acting. There are a million people that want to do it and a limited number of jobs. But the sponsorship part is great because it has nothing to do with competition at all. That's what I like about it. So somebody said, "Well, why are you going to give out your secrets to sponsorship?" And I said, there are 25 million small businesses. There's something like 12 million big corporations, and that's just in the US. I've had international sponsors too. So I can't possibly go through that many in my lifetime.
Right.
And your sponsors are your sponsors. When I was in New York, they were all local. Here in Texas, I have local sponsors, and you can do that anywhere at any time. And it's all up to you how much money you want to make. And that's really what I like about it. So, and being a speaker in general, you have to just want it really bad, love it, and stick with it, because it takes years to get to a point. You think in the beginning you're good, and then you
Yeah.
look back and you go, "Oh God, that was awful."
Been there, done that, believe me. So,
Yeah, you learn.
all right. Well, Julie, thank you so much for being my guest on this episode of the Spotlight on Speaking show. Again, check out Speaker Sponsor if you are looking at sponsorship as a means to monetize some of your speaking engagements where you might not be paid otherwise. But Julie, again, thank you. Thank you to all the listeners out there for joining in for this episode. And as always, I wish you the greatest success in all that you do, and may this year be your greatest year yet. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
This has been the Spotlight on Speaking show with Brett Ridgway. Be sure to join us every week as we interview speaking industry pros and have them share their best tips for building a profitable speaking business. Until next week, thank you for tuning in, and remember to visit our website at spotlightonspeaking.com so you can enjoy even more great episodes like this one. While you're here, be sure to subscribe via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Spotlight on Speaking show. Until then, our sincere best wishes to you for the greatest of success as you work to build your own profitable speaking business.